The idea that, the more you understand, the more you become aware of the inevitable pain, opens a discussion about the relationship between knowledge and suffering. As our knowledge of the world and ourselves deepens, so does our awareness of painful realities and the harshness of existence. Philosophers across ages have grappled with this notion, examining the psychological and intellectual consequences of increasing awareness. This essay will explore this idea through the perspectives of several philosophers, beginning with classical philosophy and moving to modern interpretations of the link between awareness and pain. In classical philosophy, especially with Socrates and Plato, the relationship between knowledge and pain was framed within the context of philosophical and moral growth. Socrates believed that knowledge is the key to living a virtuous life, and that ignorance is the root cause of many errors and suffering. However, Socrates also understood that gaining knowledge could be a painful process. The ignorant person may live in a state of blissful ignorance, unaware of the depth of problems they face, while the wise individual who seeks truth may discover that reality is far more challenging than they had anticipated. This pain is an inevitable part of the quest for truth, but it ultimately leads to a more authentic and meaningful life. Plato, in his famous allegory of the cave, illustrates this idea vividly. In the allegory, prisoners live in a cave, seeing only shadows of reality. When one prisoner is freed and steps outside into the light of the real world, he experiences pain from the brightness of the sun. However, this painful experience is the necessary path to enlightenment. For Plato, the pain of gaining knowledge is an essential step in freeing oneself from illusions and reaching a higher level of philosophical understanding. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer offered a deeply pessimistic view of life and existence. In his philosophy, life is driven by what he called the will, a blind and unconscious force that pushes all living beings toward desires and goals, most of which remain unfulfilled. Schopenhauer believed that this will is the fundamental source of human suffering, and that the more one becomes aware of the true nature of life as driven by this relentless will, the more one experiences pain. For Schopenhauer, pain is the basic condition of life, while happiness is merely a temporary absence of pain. The person who gains insight into the reality of the will and the suffering it causes becomes acutely aware of the pain that permeates existence. As knowledge of the will deepens, so does the awareness that life is filled with unavoidable suffering. Friedrich Nietzsche, though sharing some of Schopenhauer's pessimism about the nature of life, offered a different perspective on how to deal with the pain inherent in existence. Nietzsche acknowledged that life is filled with suffering, but rather than trying to avoid or minimize it, he argued that individuals should embrace and overcome pain through what he called the will to power. Nietzsche believed that the strong person is one who accepts suffering and pain as integral parts of life, using them as opportunities for growth and self-creation. In Nietzsche's concept of the eternal recurrence, he suggested that life, with all its pain and suffering, repeats endlessly. To fully affirm life, one must embrace this endless repetition of both pleasure and pain. The more a person becomes aware of the recurring nature of suffering, the stronger they become in confronting it. Thus, while greater understanding leads to greater awareness of life's pain, Nietzsche saw this awareness as a path toward strength and overcoming. Jean-Paul Sartre, a prominent existentialist philosopher, proposed the idea that human freedom is accompanied by existential angst and suffering. For Sartre, humans are condemned to be free, meaning that they have complete freedom to choose their actions and are fully responsible for those choices. As a person becomes more aware of this absolute freedom, they also become more aware of the burden of responsibility that accompanies it, which can lead to feelings of anxiety and pain. Sartre believed that the more one understands their freedom, the more one realizes that they cannot blame external factors for their situation. Every decision is their own, which brings with it the weight of responsibility and the potential for suffering. Therefore, increased awareness of freedom leads to a deeper understanding of the pain that comes with living authentically in a world where every action carries existential significance. In contrast, Buddhist philosophy offers a different approach to understanding the relationship between awareness and suffering. The Buddha taught that life is suffering, and this suffering stems from desire and attachment. As a person becomes more aware of the impermanence of life and the transient nature of all things, they also become more aware of the suffering caused by clinging to what is impermanent. However, Buddhism holds that this suffering can be transcended by letting go of desire and attachment. In Buddhism, suffering is not seen as an inescapable fate but as a result of misunderstanding life. The more deeply one understands the reality of impermanence and change, the more one can free themselves from the pain caused by attachment. Thus, while increased awareness may initially bring a heightened awareness of suffering, it also provides the tools to transcend it and achieve a state of inner peace. From examining the perspectives of these philosophers, it becomes clear that the relationship between knowledge and pain is a complex and intertwined one. A deeper understanding of life often increases awareness of the inevitable suffering that accompanies existence, whether that suffering is due to the will, as in Schopenhauer's view, freedom, as in Sartre's view, or the transient nature of life, as in Buddhism. The more we understand the limits of our existence and the forces that shape it, the more we become conscious of the pain that is an inherent part of life. However, not all philosophers see this pain as a final destination. Nietzsche and the Buddhists, in particular, suggest that this heightened awareness of suffering can lead to a path of growth, transcendence, or even empowerment. Thus, while knowledge may indeed bring with it a greater awareness of life's pains, it also opens the door to new ways of understanding and coping with that suffering, leading to deeper insights into both the self and the world.